Hello everyone, this is Group E's psychology presentation. The purpose of this video is to present information on a social issue that affects us. It will explain the social issue from the psychoanalytic perspective, propose research method, methods of data collection and participant selection respectively. Finally, a scholarly article will be summarized. Did you know that 1 in 15 children are exposed to intimate partner violence each year? Or that boys who witness domestic violence is twice as likely to abuse their own partners and children when they become adults? Previous studies have established a relationship between exposure to IPV in childhood and IPV perpetration in adulthood, which results in the intergenerational transmission of intimate partner violence. In light of these alarming statistics, our group will focus on domestic violence and more specifically, the intergenerational transmission of IPV perpetrated by males in Jamaica. Now take a look at this video which gives a brief depiction of IPV in Jamaica.
A boy was chopped to death in Windsor Heights, St. Catherine this afternoon, in the latest incident of domestic violence happening in Jamaica. His identity has not yet been released. Police say the boy's mother and older brother were also wounded in the attack. Initial reports are that the boy's mother was involved in a confrontation with her common-law husband in an area known as Sufferers Heights, when the man used a machete to chop her and her 2 sons before fleeing.
According to Priestley 2014, IPV is considered to be any threat, attempted or complete physical, emotional or sexual form of violence by a former or current intimate partner. It encompasses pushing, slapping, kicking, shoving, threats with an object, knife and other weapons. IPV is not a new phenomenon, as it has been in existence for many centuries. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, no date, reported that in 70 to 80% of intimate partner homicide, the man physically assaulted the woman before the murder, while an annual 18.5 million mental health care visits are as a result of IPV.
Based on the psychoanalysis approach, behavior does not occur at random or without purpose. And when the behavior doesn't seem to make sense, one must look beneath the surface for conflicts or the unacceptable wishes that might result in the behavioral expression. Given this underlying concept, we believe that the psychoanalytic theory is most appropriate for explaining this social issue of IPV. Yui No Date states that according to the psychoanalytic approach, much of human behavior can be understood on more than one level. It further states that the psychoanalytic approach to behavior focuses on the motives and conflicts that direct behavior. Intimate partners and femicide have been shown to account for 80% of violence acts in Jamaica between intimate couples in 1994. Although IPV has been well reported in other parts of the world, the first documentation of IPV in the Caribbean was in 1988.
According to Freud, within the id, sexual and aggressive instincts are waiting to spring forth. The superego comprises thoughts, beliefs, and fears instilled in us as a result of early socialization by parents and other authorities. The ego is the rational manager of both our unsocialized instincts and our fears and anxieties. The best known of the ego's many functions is a defense mechanism which operates at an unconscious level to help us deny reality and reduce tensions arising from the id and the superego. Research indicates that majority of the participants exposed to IPV in childhood, directly or indirectly, were notably more likely to abuse their intimate partners in adulthood than those who were not witnesses to such abuse. Further, a key aspect of IPV is that it often occurs in the context of family, typically between husbands and wives or in common law relationships. IPV in the context of the family has a far-reaching consequence for children who are often witnesses to the abuse between partners and are victims of abuse by the perpetrators of IPV. The phenomena of child's exposure to IPV and the risk of engaging in IPV as an adult is generally referred to as intergenerational transmission of IPV. Research has shown that exposure to IPV in childhood contributes to the normalization of violence and is often used as an indicator for future perpetration in adulthood. There have been several studies conducted on the link between exposure to IPV in the family of origin and subsequent exposure in families, and this includes interparental violence and child abuse.
Research methods are commonly used by psychologists to answer research questions, test the relationships between variables, or determine the applicability of psychological theory to a specific social phenomenon. There are two commonly used research methods: qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative research is proposed for the study, and it may include the use of surveys and online polls, while quantitative research highlights the statistical aspects of this domestic violence. The qualitative method seeks to provide more detailed and in-depth information to the underlying factors which contribute to domestic violence. This method is best utilized to establish correlations and relations between two or more variables.
In order to gain a clearer understanding and to identify differences and similarities in each case, the criteria to be used for the selection of the participants is that participants of this study need to have been a current or previous member of the Behavior Modification Program at a rural part of Jamaica and must have appeared before the court in matters of a domestic nature with their intimate female partner. Their participation in the Behavior Modification Program must identify them as abusers, as this will provide access to an otherwise hidden population because of their experience with family violence and IPV. A stratified random sampling approach will be employed to select the participants for this study, beginning with the most current members who meet the criteria. With the permission of the Director of Correctional Services, a list of the past members of the program within the last 2 years will be requested from the Senior Probation Officer at the location. The ID number of participants is 6. Criswell 2007 highlights that qualitative case studies generally utilize a small sample size given the large volume of data required.
The primary data collection tool to be utilized will be interview for the sole reason that it is useful in attaining highly personalized data and it allows researchers opportunities to probe to get underlying factors. It is also a viable option where there are limited respondents. This data collection method will allow the researchers the capability to offer a complete description and analysis of the research subject without limiting the scope of the research and the nature of participants' responses. Interview can provide information to which the interviewee was previously privy to, unlike other data collection methods such as questionnaires, which may act as blinkers to the responses required. This interview will comprise of open-ended questions to allow each participant to express their point of view in a controlled conversation. The interview document will be constructed in a way that each participant has the same questions, which aid in providing answers to the main topic of domestic violence and the impact this has on children in Jamaica. It will be used to get a more comprehensive level of information on the participants' socioeconomic upbringing and to ensure that the information gathered is consistent across all participants. For the interview process, each participant will be given a consent form which will be explained to them by the researcher, and their acknowledgement of understanding same will be required before they are given permission to continue with the interview. This will be done to ensure that each participant knows the full description of what they will be taking part in and how the data collected will be analyzed and developed. Participants will be informed that the interview is voluntary and they can at any time choose to discontinue without any consequence. The participants will be able to conduct their interviews in private, which foster confidentiality and comfort. The boundaries associated with this case study is that all participants has to have been a member of the Behavior Intervention and Support Program spearheaded by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Culture.
A summary was done on a scholarly article titled Interpersonal Violence in Three Caribbean Countries, Barbados, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago. The study examined IPV among adolescents and young adults as both victims and perpetrators. The study was done using a sample of 4,159 15 to 30-year-olds from 3 countries and used the Revised Conflict Tactics Scales CTS2. Other behavioral instruments were used to test the characteristics and the level of interpersonal violence. A total of 3,401 questionnaires were completed in the study with a response rate of 81.3%. Samples of the study respondent was calculated and stratified by country, sex, and type of violence. Violence or violent injury and other health risk behaviors often began at a very early age, and partner violence exists among adolescents and young adults. Qualitative data indicated that adolescents' partnering process is closely linked to IPV aggression.
Other relevant studies conducted in the Caribbean included research on the problem of IPV and aggression in schools and its effect on education, performance, and nutrition, the impact of exposure to violence-related psychological distress, and the role of protective factors against violence, such as family connectedness. They also indicated that the victimization level of psychological aggression were high, and over 2/3 of all surveyed reported a history of psychological aggressive behavior in the past or current relationship.
It can be concluded that IPV is a prevalent social issue of concern, and the more appropriate theory that can be used to explain this issue is Freud's psychoanalytic perspective. Additionally, qualitative research method is recommended for gathering the required data and information. By extension, the proposed primary method of data collection is interviews, and participants will be selected using stratified random sampling based on defined criteria. This is not a new phenomenon, as there have been multiple researches of this nature done in the past.